Hey, Julia Barzyk here from Wise Investigator. So we're getting to the end of the calendar year, and a lot of people are really slammed. So I wanted to take some time to talk about getting help. Now, there are two different reasons why people, generally any of us, really whatever kind of work we're in or whatever kind of business that we're in, and why we would get help, reasons for this. And they're not mutually exclusive. So very often you're getting help for both of these reasons, but there may be one that's driving your decision to get help more than another. And those would be because you need help from someone who has a higher level of expertise and in whatever task you need help with, and or you're looking to save time. So, one thing that comes to mind that is really often an afterthought in the proposal preparation process, but that can trip people up in terms of time, so this is in the category of saving time, would be something like formatting documents, like, for example, formatting a CV. So, likely you have a CV, but if you're at an early career stage, it may not be fully updated because you're at a stage where you are changing your employer. There's things that are changing about your role more frequently. So if you haven't updated it in 6 months or so, there actually could be significant updates you need to make to that. And again, the CV is something that I'm sure you're not losing sleep over. I'm sure you have something that's kind of okay. But the problem comes in when this is required for a proposal package, or this could even be like a biosketch. Although as a little aside, oftentimes the biosketch does have a more standardized format that's required, but it still takes time to put that together, especially if you have updates. But the CV is something that would be an easy thing for you to send out to someone who does editing or formatting and have that person get that in a really good shape for you in maybe an hour or 90 minutes that they could spend with this, and it wouldn't be very expensive for you to get that help. But you could ask within your institution, that help may be available. You could also find someone on Upwork or ask around, friends and colleagues, and find someone to do this for you, because oftentimes this can become a problem, not because it's so much work to format the CV, but because when you find that you need this piece, you're also in a crunch writing all the other pieces of the proposal package. So again, it's something that's often an afterthought, but it can trip you up when you spend a couple hours on the document like that, that's taking away from your project summary or something in the project description, other things like that are really important pieces too. Because for some opportunities, something like a CV can actually be make up 20% of the evaluation criteria. So submitting a document like that doesn't look good in terms of its readability, or it's not visually pleasing because it may have been like printed out from a website or something like that. I have seen ones that look like that. It just makes it harder for the reader to absorb all the information, because they're turning a lot more pages, or the headings are off from the page that you'd want them to be on, with whatever list is following that heading. And it also can look a little bit sloppy in terms of you are not having taken the time to make this document look good. So this is just one example of something that you can get help on to save you time. Now, if you go to somebody who's skilled at formatting and editing, they probably also have more expertise on formatting something like that, and you're also going to find that it actually comes out looking a lot better than what you could do. But that's one example. So for me, when I was starting my business a year ago, I needed help from both categories. There were some things that I didn't have expertise in, like making a website, for example. That's an easy example. And I also didn't want to take the time to do that myself. So I would have been able to make a website myself. Of course, there's many drag and drop, no code options that you can put something together pretty easily from a template, and it looks okay. but that would have taken me a lot more time than having the website made, and it would not look as good. For me, because I'm a mid-career person and I resigned from a job and wanted to get my business going as quickly as possible, it made sense for me to get help on a number of things that sped up my process of coming onto the marketplace with a service that I could actually offer, as opposed to another person who might have taken a year to say, I'm going to do all these things myself. I'm going to learn how to do them. I'm okay with, my website looking a little basic, and that could be fine. Actually, that could be exactly what somebody needs at a certain point in time. So again, I made the decisions that were right for me, and I'm encouraging you to think about some decisions like that, like what decisions you could be making right now, especially because this is a crunch time and we're going to have a new semester starting soon. So now is a time to think about some of those items that you're probably not losing sleep over, like, for example, the CV, or, for example, your LinkedIn profile, something that you may want to have done on your website. Again, they're not items that are really pressing, they don't have deadlines, but there are definitely people out there who have the skills that they can help you very easily and get you to that next level with really a better result, and just getting your time back or not spending that time because you have more than enough to do. Now, let's get into why in academia, with faculty, there seems to be a certain level of, we could even say, shame about wanting to get help on certain things that you should be able to do on your own. And I think this is very misplaced and, frankly, very outdated. Let's look at another example. So some people feel that they should be able to keep their house clean on their own, and if they use a house cleaning service, that's something that they would feel ashamed about. Other people don't have any problem, don't see any reason not to do that. It's not, keeping their house clean on their own without help is not something that they've ever put on their list of things that they feel like are important to do on their own. And so my point is just, it's completely arbitrary. So which things we as humans pick up based on whatever kind of self-conceptions we have, gender, culture, whatever, that, how what our parents, how they ran a house or how they ran their business or their careers, we pick these things up to say, oh, I should not need help with XYZ, but it's fine to go get help over here. Whereas another person might have the reverse feeling and impression. And so, again, my point is really that it's arbitrary. And I also think for academia that this can be somewhat generational, because if you are getting guidance from people who are quite a bit older than you, which would be normal because these are people who are more senior to you in your department, like, full professors, many of them, while they were very busy in their careers and they've done a lot of work and had many demands on them, we're not taking away from that, but they did not come into their early career stage at a time when the internet either existed or exists how it does now with social media and all that kind of stuff. So they did not have this whole other domain, which is the online presence and the faster moving pace of information, which is associated with technologies related to the internet. They did not have that pressure or those demands on them when they were at their very early career stage. Something like Rate Your Professor came into existence, maybe that was getting pretty popular, like, 15 to 20 years ago, but there are people who came up before, right, that Eve, something like Rate My Professor was even out there. And so those folks had an opportunity to get a lot more practice with teaching and improve their skills. As it happens over time, right? We get better the more we do things, before they had to face the entire audience of students who would be checking up on their reviews and all those kinds of comments, like stuff that. So my point is that if you're looking to someone from another generation to model yourself after, well, they didn't need this kind of support, I would argue that there were fewer demands on folks. Well, again, it's still a very demanding profession to be in, no matter what decade you started. But I would encourage you to think about the reality of our situation now, which is at the end of 2023 and going into 2024, the number of demands that are on you, and the fact that some of the things that you spend time doing are actually relatively low level tasks, like formatting a document in Word, that you could get help on, and you could get help through your institution. You can get help from something like Upwork, or asking around for an editor. You can get help from postdocs or students or other trainees if they have a particular skill in that area, even for things like graphic design. I'm always looking for people who have a strong skill in that area because that's a weakness of mine. So as you go into the new year, please think about how you can get help. I believe that you deserve the help, you deserve the support. You have very little support administratively, even though I know your admin support in your departments are wonderful. There is still not a good ratio, I think, between those support people and the number of people that they're supporting. So take care of yourself. Don't feel bad about getting help. Just because someone who's older than you, or in a different discipline, industry, whatever, just because they didn't need or they chose not to get help with something, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't get help with it if it can get you ahead and get you a better product and or save you time.